Nobody was prepared for what transpired in that courtroom, but Chrissy didn't cry, she didn't deny, and she stared the judge in the eye. They told us it was done, that the hotel clip was the end. Gaze and whispered the words that stopped the room from breathing. It wasn't a one-time affair. I was in love with Cameron dead. Jim just stared at her without blinking or moving. Mama Jones yelled as he watched a stranger don his fiancé's flesh. The judge dropped his pen, and Cameron leaned back in the corner, arms crossed, as if he already knew what she would say. Chrissy removed the pin herself. There were no cameras, no script, no second takes, just the unvarnished, messy truth of the courtroom. What happened next? 2 more video. Chrissy begs Mona Scott to remove the video via a voicemail and a sealed email conversation. But it's too late because the truth is already out. K. And believe me, everything you thought you knew is altered by what she confesses next. Rewind to that courtroom, and the moment Chrissy came up, her hands quivering, her mascara streaked, her lips shaking, and brought everything to a halt. The court had just asked her a straightforward question while she was under oath. Miss Lampin, is there anything else you would like to share before we move forward with the evidence? No one, not even her own attorney, anticipated her speaking. But Chrissy moved the microphone, cleared her throat, turned to face Jim, and made an incredibly candid confession. Unexpectedly, it left half the audience stunned. It wasn't just an emotional error. I was in a relationship with Cameron, not a casual hookup or fling, but a committed one. She claimed that she was done concealing, as if the guilt wasn't bothering her anymore because it had already been resolved in the late-night voicemails, burner phone, delete those texts kind of relationship. At one point, he was Jim Jones, the Harlem Kingpin, the Dipset legend, the devoted writer, but he didn't say a word and instead sat there as if someone had disconnected the guy completely, or perish. The next thing you knew, he was just a man in a courtroom being grilled by the woman he had created a complete brand around. The court clerk even heard him. Appeared as though she had seen a ghost, while Cameron, sitting 2 rows back behind sunglasses indoors, had his head cocked slightly, as if he had anticipated this moment. Perhaps he did, since perhaps this was that USB clip cam that was released last month wasn't only a sneak look. It was a declaration of war. Chrissy in a hoodie. Let's not act like this was an unexpected development. Sneaking into the Moran. Hotel at 9:13 p.m. Reggie opens the door, pours wine, listens to slow music, and talks about how someone else's life is oppressive. However, what made the fast forward to the moment when Chrissy's voice said, "Jim still thinks I met my cousins? He's so easy." It was not the images that made the internet go crazy. Today, we find out that Cameron, not even Reggie, was in the hotel. Let that sink in. Cam Jim's ex-D-Pet brother, his former pal Chrissy, calmly sat there on the stand telling the world she was with the man who once toasted at their engagement dinner. The courtroom didn't burst. Instead, it froze, and Mama Jones quickly got up. She grabbed both of her arms and yelled, "Wild-eyed, you snake, you ruined my son Chrissy." Chrissy didn't flinch or even cry. Instead, she appeared exhausted. Completed, she informed the judge that she was ready to provide her own proof in the form of screenshots, trip logs, and burner phone images to make sure that everything Cam had already revealed was simply the surface. The situation worsened when Jim's lawyer, who had remained silent the entire time, rose up and leaned toward the unfinished truth, as if this was a narrative she was finally ready to tell. Mike and declared, "Your Honor, we would like to file an instant motion for fraud, emotional abuse, and brand destruction based on this new admission." Let's speak about brand sabotage. This wasn't just an infidelity scandal. It was a business disaster since Jim and Chrissy's whole operation wasn't merely founded on love and was made profitable through VH1 specials, spin-offs, brand deals, podcast cameos, wedding rumors, and sold-out interviews and tickets. Now, however, it's all falling apart, and the reason is because the foundation was phony since the woman Jim phoned on his first day was recorded on tape whispering secrets to his adversary while testifying in court. How did we get here? According to insiders, it didn't begin with Reggie. Begin with Cam. It began with animosity. Word has it that Chrissy felt marginalized and desired greater authority over the story and brand. She allegedly informed producers, "I'm not here to be his accessory, I'm making mine." At that point, Cam reappeared. Whether you think it was consolation, retaliation, or just opportunities. According to court documents, Chrissy allegedly met Cameron 8 times over the course of 2 years, so their relationship wasn't a one-time rebound. That USB, secret hotel check-ins, private flights, unregistered dinner reservations, and that was only clip 1. According to Cam's legal team, they also have 2 further videos and a voicemail that was recorded. Cam can't know he'll use it. Please just make sure the footage is wiped. Chrissy phones Mona Scott directly in this scene. Oh, and don't forget that Cam leaked that too, so you're probably wondering, where's Jim in all this? He hasn't spoken. In public, but his quiet was audible to witnesses in that courtroom. Claim that his hands were shaking beneath the table, that his attorney gave him a stress ball, and that he avoided looking at Chrissy at any point during her testimony. Honestly, how could finding out that your girl's safe haven was your biggest adversary and that the man you toured with once possessed secrets she wouldn't even divulge is more than just betrayal? It's surgical heartbreak. At home, and now everyone is aware. But wait a minute. The judge asked if anyone else had anything to say before recess. And guess who got up? Cameron's attorney. Cameron's lawyer didn't raise his voice when he walked forward with a brown folder and stated 7 words that caused everyone in the room to freeze once more. We have more footage, and it's dated. The judge didn't blink and stated, "Submit it to the clerk," calmly. Those 7 words were enough to flip the courtroom energy like a breaker switch. We have more footage, and it's dated. The bailiff walked like he was walking a bomb to the bench, yet you could sense the tightness tightening his neck. Perhaps he was, because when that folder struck the judges, Chrissy's expression changed abruptly. Her eyes twitched, her lips split slightly, and everyone realized that this was no longer a sideshow, but a demolition. Fell to the ground as if she had already figured out what was in the envelope, perhaps recalling what she had said on the recording. The judge took out a USB from the folder and examined both legal teams and stated, "I want this played now, no delays." Jim's lawyer did not object, but Chrissy's lawyer was frantically whispering quickly in her head. Cam's lawyer nodded. The screen was lowered, the projector was turned on, and silence ensued. She simply shook her head and murmured, "No, it's okay. Let it play." Then there was static, followed by Chrissy in a studio trailer with her hair wrapped and makeup free, sitting with someone off camera who was calm, honest, and had a crisp voice. "I'm not stupid. Mona knows that if this leaks, I'm off camera. I know Jim is loyal," she says, "but loyalty doesn't solve bored Cam, makes me feel something." The other voice answers, "It's yen dandy Smith girl you Chrissy drinks her drink and utters the words that pierce the air. You know Cam hates him, you get caught. It's not just a scandal, it's war. Court, I previously got caught once I talked my way out, but I won't lie the second time." The screen turns black, the court freezes, Jim stays still, and his lawyer appears to have just taken their oxygen. His lungs, the court was silent, and Mama Jones was crying, not the crazy, irate type from before, but sadness, she muttered to herself, knowing she knew what she was. Chrissy simply sat there with her hands folded and her face expressionless, as if she had already come to terms with her role in this tale. However, it wasn't over because the judge turned to face her and inquired, "Menon, is this you, spoken in this footage?" "Yes, sir," she said after he repeated, "And this is from an unedited Love and Hip Hop trailer on set?" "Yes," she said. This time with no hesitation, then the judge turned to VH1's legal rep. Yes, they were in the room now, sweating, scribbling, whispering into phones and said, "Why was this footage that wasn't included in the initial subpoena request?" The VH1 attorney stammered, "We didn't know it existed." A crew member off the judge arched an eyebrow, but it's evident that Ms. Lannon and Ms. Smith are talking about the possible consequences of leaked material, and they both admit its existence. Cameron continued to stare in silence, as if the walls were closing in on them. Was a spectacle in which the executive produced Jim, who remained still, Chrissy, who remained frozen in silent surrender, and the real kicker, Cam's lawyer, who rose up once more saying, "One more item, Your Honor," is a voicemail that was made by Ms. Lampin to Ms. Scott Young 2 weeks prior to that footage. A file was played, and Chrissy's voice was heard once more, frantically, whispering, "Mona, I said, I need you to handle that room footage. If Jim finds out that the entire season is ruined, Cam can't know either. He'll use it." Reggie vowed it was erased. The courtroom went silent as you had promised. A man in the crowd literally got up and yelled, "She used Mona like a fixer." The judge slammed the gavel order, which took 3 minutes to obtain. Once everyone had calmed down, the harm had already been done. This was no longer simply about cheating. It was a cover-up, a production manipulation, and an attempt to ruin. Evidence in a pending case, VH1's attorney appeared to be watching. His career take off before his eyes, and suddenly Jim got up. Nobody saw it coming, and his attorney attempted to halt. He dismissed him, though, and turned to face Chrissy. Everyone held their breath, took 3 steps closer, and whispered, "Was any of that real?" Chrissy opened her mouth to answer the question, which hung in the air like smoke. She blinked and then glanced down, but she didn't say anything. That? Quiet was louder than a slap. Jim nodded once before turning to walk back too. Jim didn't flinch or react as his lawyer whispered something in his ear at the table. Then, abruptly, he took out a document and handed it to his lawyer, who stood your honor. "Mr. Jones wants to file a countersuit against Miss Lampkin for willful deceit, emotional anguish, and brand fraud." The judge appeared surprised, asking, "You're filing now?" "Yes, today," the attorney said, but the courtroom wasn't finished with the twists since the judge was going to take a break for recess. A clerk entered the room carrying a sealed package. "From Homeland Security," he murmured, softly. The judge opened it, read it quietly, and then looked up face. Homeland was now perplexed. "Dead serious. According to information provided to this court, Ms. Lampkin is also being looked into for obstruction in relation to a continuing charity scam." Chrissy's lawyer stepped up and said, "This is outside the scope of this case." The Guriwaus judge wasn't having it, so they decided to take a 30-minute break. The case was connected to the film that had been addressed in earlier hearings. "However, we will deal with this complete turmoil." Mona Scott's team appeared to be prepared to disappear, and VH1's representative began gathering documents as if they were going to be subpoenaed themselves. Cam simply grinned since this was about something greater than Jim anymore. It was the gradual eruption of a whole brand, one confession at a time, and that brown folder contained Cam's attorney gave up one last item, a text log from a burner. Phone registered to Reggie as the judge rose and recessed the court, so even with more footage scrawled on it, it wasn't empty. "If the clip drops, she'll deny it, but I'm done protecting her. Let Cam have it. Let them all burn 30 minutes, which felt like 3 hours, people," she said in the final text on the page. Jim Jones didn't leave the courtroom during recess. Instead, they paced and whispered while staring at Chrissy as if she were a villain from a reality show who had just appeared on screen. Not the judge, not the media, nor even Mama Jones, who sat behind him holding a tissue as if it were her last, remaining hope. But Cam merely remained there without blinking, shifting, or speaking. When court resumed, the tension was so high that it seemed as though sound could not travel. He was cool and silent, as if he knew that his name would be the last one on screen when the credits rolled. The judge returned, put down his papers, and wasted no time in reviewing the last submission, a text log found on a burner phone belonging to the person mentioned. Then came the second message. "If the clip drops, she'll deny it, but I'm done protecting her. Let Cam have it. Let them all burn." Reggie scanned the page slowly. One Chrissy believed would never be seen again, so she used me to make Jim envious. She claimed that Dipset was done, and she wanted to feel strong for once. She claimed that Cam treated her like a queen, and I was merely the cover gasps. One woman in the second row actually put both hands over her mouth, and Mama Jones broke. Again, muttering, "Oh my God." No tears, no outburst, no denial. Chrissy was still silent. The judge looked directly at her and asked, "Manan, are you aware of these messages?" She nodded once. "I am." "Do you deny their content now?" She said, pausing before closing her eyes and whispering, "No." At that moment, Jim's attorney got back up. "With your consent, Your Honor, We would also want to submit a signed contract between Mr. Jones and Miss Lannon that outlines their joint ownership of their planned Netflix documentary series. Include exclusivity conditions, emotional representation terms, and brand equity clauses that we now believe were broken. The courtroom was silent because if that agreement was genuine, and if Chrissy violated it while a show about their eternal love was being recorded, the judge would have been engaging in legal sabotage rather than merely emotional warfare. To call White, a deep breath before responding. Ms. Lampkin, were you involved with Mr. Giles, Mr. Cameron during the planning and promotion of this series? I inquired, skimming the contract. It was her words that made this entire trial historic. Yes, I was, and I knew that if Jim found out, everything would fall apart. There were no more whispers, no more hazy videos, and no more theories. She lied on video in court and to a man. And the affair with Cameron began before the series was pitched, before the trailer, and before the reunion special, when she sobbed about wanting to grow together. Chrissy saved my life, someone once claimed. Jim didn't react, he just whispered. I knew it. To nobody in. Then he left without a statement, no publicist, no security, just a guy leaving the remains of a life he believed to be genuine. The court announced a 5-minute break, but for VH1, within minutes of Chrissy's complete disclosure to the media, sponsors began removing emails that had been released, and screenshots of producer group chats that had been leaked appeared. It was already too late. Mona's ghosting everyone, I think she's done, read one online message. Another said, we're looking at class action lawsuits if this footage goes live. A former VH1 editor then published the shocking post, writing anonymously, you don't realize this wasn't just a show. This was contrived anguish. They made Jim Chrissy played along until she was forced to stop believing in love for the sake of camera angles. By nightfall, the SARS Chrissy confession hashtag had received 7 million views. Cam went live the same evening. Her testimonial clips were all over TikTok, overlaid with depressing music, glitchy edits, and captions like, she wanted fame. He wanted forever. He logged out after saying, I told you she wasn't built for him, in a black sweatshirt with little illumination. The clip had 3 points, 2 million views in less than in a 2-sentence press release. Mona Scott finally spoke up after an hour. I was unaware of Miss Lampkin's behind-the-scenes activities, and I am assisting all legal investigations going ahead. But no one took her seriously because now interns and producers' assistants were scuttling out of the woods, spilling tea in emails that showed deleted moments. One scene in particular where Jim says, Chrissy point blank, do you still love me? Is a chopped clip from the Netflix series. Reacts more than anything. At this point, people are claiming that she turned to the left after saying it, as if she was looking for a clue that it wasn't real. To make matters worse, the episode's editor Chrissy hesitated and murmured off camera, I hope that's enough for now, before they acknowledged, cutting out the next line. That one sentence completely impacted the scene. Jim apparently went entirely offline after the love story that typified VH1's Ride or Die branding was shown to be nothing more than a skillfully produced fiction. His team released a statement stating that he's not supplying Chrissy has been quiet, posting nothing, denying anything, and just sharing one silent Instagram story that night. He is concentrating on healing therapy and preserving what little serenity he still has. Following the decision, the black background and white writing read, you can love others and break them even now. The internet wasn't possessing it. Delete. Comments poured in. Cam took advantage of you and Jim deserved better. You allowed him and Cam, who is said to agreed to distribute a documentary. The footage they tried to is a series that there is one in the teaser trailer for Barry. Chrissy's face was frozen in mid-sentence. If this comes out, Jim's going to abandon me. Cam's voice cuts to black, and I learned that the whole series trailer has ended. Drops next month, and VH1 remains quiet due to. The court heard more than just a confession. The world did, and nobody is looking now. The fallout is the show they're watching. Thus, the sole query that remains is whether is ever true since, in the end, no. This type of scripting is possible for reality TV shows. No producer can prevent you from heartbreak. From receipts, the narrative is finished. The truth is finally out, and the brand is dead. Forever. Forever.